So, everybody, my name's Erin Drain, and I'm from Olé Obrigado. We are the importer that represents Antonio Maçanita and all of his wines. We are a company based in New York City, and we distribute all over the United States, all 50 states. We represent wines from Portugal and Spain. And we've got Rui Abacazis, who's here, is the founder of Obrigado, and Patrick Mata's here, founder of Olé. And a bunch of our team are here, and we're so excited to have you. The plan for this call today is we're going to have Antonio present for about 40 minutes, 45 minutes on his background and specifically on his project making wine in the Azores in Portugal. And I can already see from the chat, some of you have been there and you're familiar. So you know already this is a really, really special place, one of the most unique terroirs on earth. And we've got some awesome slides for you, some photos to see, although they don't compare to the real thing. The plan is that everyone's going to be on mute except for myself and Antonio, maybe with a little bit in from Rui for color commentary periodically throughout the call. And we are going to be monitoring this chat and leave room, plenty of room at the end, of course, for questions, because we anticipate there will be many of them. So that being said, I think we should get started. Antonio, if you would introduce yourself and tell us about your project and your winemaking story, then I will start on the slides. And if you want me to catch up, I will just give me a little nudge to progress.
Cool.
Thanks. Let's go.
Let's do it.
Yeah.
So, well, first, thank you for organizing this, and everyone, thank you for being present. It's really nice to at least take this time, a little bit more messy, to be able to touch base, even if it's at a distance. And for me also, the possibility to share with you our special project. So we'll focus, I do wines in 3 regions. I'm in Alentejo. I'm in the winery in Alentejo that is inland from Lisbon. And so, I'll show you guys, so you can have an idea. So the map will be that we are around here. So almost in the border with Spain. So 50 kilometers from the border with Spain. And I have a project with my sister in Douro called Maçanita. And I have this project in the Azores. They show up down here, but actually they're 1/3 of the way between Portugal and Americas. And I want to focus with you on that and focus what makes Azores so special. My quick background is I'm a winemaker that I would say a bit of an outsider of the business because my parents are not in the business. I didn't have family on the business, and so I just, lucky enough, I went to the wrong university degree that ended up being the right one, and then fell in love with viticulture. Then viticulture, I tried to plant some vineyards in 2000 in the Azores, where my father's from. That didn't work out very well because I was planting crappy grapes there. Lucky enough, God or the planet Earth or whatever did it, kind of burned my plantation. It's vineyards, but so burned my plantation. In 2001, I went to work in California, so I went to work at Maryville Vineyards. Then 2002, I went to work in Red Estate in Oakville. Came back to Portugal to keep on studying. Went to Australia to work at Darenberg, Linzbach. Then I started my project in Portugal in 2004. I started my project with, it was a joint venture, me winemaker, so I was 24 at the time, with the English viticulturist. So it's been, today's a special day because it's been 8 years since he's not here. So David, my previous partner in business and good friend, ended up passing away 8 years ago. But we started our project side by side, gardener and cook, so how we used to say it. So vineyard manager and a viticulturist and winemaker. And so we started a project in Alentejo. It ended up working pretty well. And in 2010, I had the opportunity to do something in the Azores, where my father's from. So my mother's from this region, from Alentejo, and that's how all this started. So if you can help me, Aaron, we can start with just this what's written here. We'll go straight. I don't know if anyone had the chance to look at the video. Did it get sent? Oh no, the video.
So I forgot to mention that. Thank you. Great reminder. We are going to be following up at the end of this call with a really beautiful video that would have overloaded our servers, we think, to show to you on this call. And we've got all of your contact information because you registered through Zoom. So we're going to be sending that along with some more information about the wines for you afterward. Yeah.
Cool. So we all say this, a picture is better than 1,000 words. Then a video, it's even more incredible. So we'll go through this, and I think you'll get a pretty good idea of what it is. But do look at the link that will be sent. It's so nice, to see. It's 4 minutes of video that are really give you a good feeling of what the place is. So let's start where we are. Can you move one, please? One slide. Yeah, so we are really 1/3, the little map that you see below, we are 1/3 of the way between Lisbon and New York. This group of islands called the Azores. This is really the beginning of the New World, so to speak. Portugal and Spain were starting their discoveries in the 1400s, beginning of the 1400s. So in 1430s, these islands get occupied, and the central group that is where this island, the Pico Island that you see here, gets occupied really almost 50 years after, so 1480, something like that. And its occupation is very, very particular, because as Portugal is occupying islands, it's lacking people to occupy all the places that it's moving through. So that it's going to start moving through the coast and to the African coast. And so an agreement is made with the Isabella of Portugal to kind of bring some French and Flemish. And so the first captain of the island is actually a Flemish, Jos van Oorter, where the name Horta from Fayal comes in. And what it makes is this, why is this relevant, is it really makes a completely different pool of people. And when it's a different pool of people, it means that people are coming from all of the places, and each one of them are bringing their own cuttings. So this is how vineyards travel. So the religious orders are bringing their cuttings of grapes, and they're going to be planting this in Pico. So there weren't vineyards there before. So in the 1400s, people are bringing it. And then I'll go into this a little bit later on. Why is why are the grapes of Azores so unique and to this place? So look at this. We are used to talk about wines from the islands, and we think of heat. And look where Madeira is. And if you want to go to Canary Islands, you need to go to parallel 28. So see Madeira it's on parallel 33. But if you want to go to Canary Islands, you need to go to 28. Mount Etna is on the same parallel as Pico, but the difference is because it's Mediterranean is so much warmer. So first big thing to get from Azores is it's a cool to moderate climate. So that's very atypical to be on island wines that are cool to moderate. So if you can move one, please. So you can see it's not very easy to understand from this photograph, and it's hard to believe, but all the lines you see here are actually walls of rock. And so a lot of you must have seen the grapes from vineyards from Tenerife, or vineyards from the Canary Islands, from Lanzarote, that you can see that they are protected in holes or little rocks in El Hierro. There's a little bit of this rock walls. It's to protect from the winds, but you can see in the back, it's actually a wave pounding. So I'm going to put to you the first question is, if you go back one, Aaron, please. And this is to everyone, you can participate by text. Is the big question is why, all these walls, if you build them, if you put a straight line to them, it's 2 times around the world. Why would people go to all this effort of planting vineyards so close to the ocean? So if you can contribute with the text, I'm looking at it. Wind, but wind is a problem, so to speak, because Portuguese are nuts. That's good, Eugênio. Protect from Gulf Stream. Salt burns the vines, yeah. So that it's worse to have it close to the ocean. Why would you do it that? Why would you build? You build to apologize. Maybe the question wasn't well placed. The walls are to protect from the winds. No question about it. But why would you go to all this effort of planting it so close to the ocean? So someone is saying temperature, water availability, so lower water table. No, sunlight. Maybe to get some sunshine. That's a good question. So go forward one, Aaron, please. So these are the rock walls, just for you to get an idea. This is when the ocean kind of bangs. So to get an idea, this rock walls do need to exist. And you say, well, but if they will still, the vineyards will still get some salt, of course. It's going to drop on the vineyards, but it's not going to go through them. But even if we have what we call a dry, go back a little bit before, Aaron. So think of this: if the salt is touching flowers, think of spring. We have the flowers, the pre bunches, they're so buds is something different. But they're so sensitive that if you have salt on them, if it doesn't rain to wash it out, it burns out. So go forward one, Erin. So the reason why you have to plant there is because you need to have to be out of the influence of the mountain. So what you have is this huge stratovolcano. So it's the same if you look at a photograph of Mount Fuji or Pico in Canary Islands or Mount Etna. They are the same type of volcano, stratovolcano. This is 2,351 meters. And what it's doing, it's an amazing effect. So it's the phone effect. These humid winds are coming from the ocean. They're going to hit the mountain. They're going to start going up. Clouds form and it rains on top. So we are in a cool to moderate climate, but if you're far away from the mountain, you're going to get a lot more sun and a lot more rain. And I'm going to show you that it's not just a conversation. I'll show you a little bit of science. So can you walk? I was trying to walk one, but can you walk it? So this is you can see with red is above 2,200 and almost water level in the edges. Can you walk one? So this is the rain map. You can see that in the dark blue, it's above 5,000 millimeters of rain. This is the Pyrenees. This is not a place you can do wine. And then it kind of fades down into the yellow zone where you are below 1,000 millimeters. It's unbelievable in the Azores to be below 1,000. So what makes Pico so special is that this huge mountain is kind of grabbing part of the clouds and leaving the edges of the island with enough sunlight and enough heat. Can you move one to kind of to ripen the fruit properly? So you can see here on the edges, and this is really like if you go to the island and who has been, it's almost like the vineyards are just planted on the red orange areas, just. it kind of really takes on this two factors: heat and no rain. So moving on. So we've spoken about, so this island is pretty unique because it has this mountain. It kind of grabs all the clouds and leaves the edges to ripe the fruit. But what about the soil? So this is a very, very young island. So it was born 300,000 years ago. So compared to most of the islands in Tenerife that are 25 million years old to 5 million years old, or São Miguel that is 5 million years old. And why is this relevant? Is when you don't have enough time to degrade the rock, you really don't have soil. You don't have enough. The degradation was not enough to generate true soil. So what we see here is really a good cut of what the soil is. So you have a little bit of a topsoil that is based on years of leaves falling. So it's organic matter. It's very thin. Then you have a lava bed, so a lava flow that kind of created this. It depends. It goes from, it can be 30 centimeters to 5 meters, this lava flows. And you have eruption material, the crumble that you see underneath. And then you'd have layers and layers of this. And how are vineyards exploring this? You can see it's so cool. There's some cracks on the rock. The cracks are from weathering of rain, their heat and cooling. So it kind of cracks the rock. And so the vineyards are planted in the cracks of the lava bed. So a lot of my friends say, how are your soils? What do you do to manage your soil? We have no soil management. We just put the vineyards on the cracks of the rocks, and they're feeding from whatever's underneath, from eruption, sedimentation, and whatever goes in the cracks from the rains. So you can move one. So we've talked about we're in a cool to moderate climate, but the mountain is kind of grabbing part of the clouds. We're close to the ocean. Because we're close to the ocean, we have to build these rocks. The island is very young, so volcanic soils are generally very fertile, but there's almost no soil, so it's enough to keep them alive and to have enough ripeness. Now, the third point that makes up a terroir, before speaking about man, is the group of grapes. So 3 grapes here, all exclusive to the Azores. One is shared with Madeira. So Arinto dos Açores. Actually, a producer from Mount Etna told me that. So it was so funny. So pH range of the soils, they're acid soils. And what's normal, these are really high in potassium soils. So what you'll get, it's really this myth that is sometimes are true. Acid soils give basic meaning low acid wines, but it's about pH. So actually the pH of our wines are pretty high for the acidity. So this wouldn't be, most of the producers you would hear saying this has a negative aspect. I think it's really the essence of Azores wines. So you have a lot of acidity, but there's this coating of saltiness that gives texture and comfort. And that comes really from I know the salinity word makes us think of ocean, but this salinity in terms of texture, in terms of salts in solution, comes from potassium on the soils. So there's John Zabo is doing an amazing job about volcanic wines, but he has kind of created this monster of volcanic soil. So and we need to be talking about volcano soils now to be straight to the point. What do I mean about volcano soils? Volcano, so Mount Etna, the first eruption is 500,000 years ago. So Pico is 300,000 years old. Mount Etna is 500,000 years old. What I'm saying is that the weathering, the degradation of the rock can't be 50 million years old or else the reminiscence of the what connects these volcanic soils is very different. So I would say that Tenerife makes me think, the soils make me think of ours. Tenerife, well, Canary Islands in general, and Mount Etna makes me think of this soils. Of course, Santorini as well, but it's a completely different scope of type of soils. So moving to grape varietals, can you move one? Erin, are you still there?
Yeah. Is this what you want, or you want the other one?
Yeah. So this is a little study that I started doing 4 or 5 years ago. Which winery are you at today? So I'm in Alentejo. What am I drinking? Isabella. Well, in Europe, I'm the only one legally authorized to drink it.
The rebel.
This is a study that I did together with a research institute. So I started this in 2013, and took us 4 years. So the due deadline was 1 year, but we kind of got there. So first is Savagnin. Is now we know today that Savagnin is really the mother grape of a lot of different grapes. So there's something like Goya Blanc. There have to be really, really old varietals that were taken back in the days to a lot of different places that created a lot of descendants. So you can see here, just from Savagnin, you have Sauvignon Blanc, Moulard, Alvarinho, Vieuxin, those links, so many. It's really impressive. And so we know that Verdelho is the mother grape. Can you see here on the left, Verdelho that exists also in Madeira is the mother grape of the other 2 grapes that exist in the Azores, called Terrantes do Pico and Arinto dos Açores. So what did we conclude? I think the most important thing on this publication is, number one, that these grapes are indigenous to the Azores, that you can only find them there. So the genetic profile cannot be found anywhere else. So that's very interesting. Second is that Verdelho, the Verdelho from the mainland, the Verdelho from the Azores is the same as Madeira, but it's completely different from the mainland and has never been found in the old vineyards of Portugal. Why is this so important? Let me take you back to what I said in the beginning of the genetic pool of people that went to the central group. So what would be normal to think is that the grapes of Azores are the grapes that came from Portugal. But because the grapes from the population that occupied Azores was so diverse, a name like Betancourt, that is so French, Dariag, well, we have Ben here, look at him, he's descendant of people from Pico. Or descendant from a Dutch, then and it's common because the genetic pool of people was different from the genetic pool of the other islands, and different genetic pool of people, different genetic pool of grapes, and here we are, 500 years after, these new grapes were created by natural crossings. What grapes stayed? The grapes that resisted better, the grapes that fitted this extreme terroir. And I also think that this extreme place has helped to speed up the process, so to speak. Imagine you plant something, it just dies, but there's one that survives, and so it's kind of like a fastening. So 3 grapes, if you can move forward, 3 indigenous grapes of white grapes, Arinto dos Açores. Think of kind of Riesling-like, like if you plant Riesling in Rias Baixas, something like that. So, or if you plant Riesling really close to the ocean, or Alvarinhos from Rias Baixas in the same reservoir, but it's still more extreme on the terms of acidity. Verdelho, a softer version. So can you teach us? True, I adapt to English. So Arinto dos Açores. Arinto dos Açores, Verdelho e Terrantes do Pico. Ben, you want to give it a try? Or Erin, you want to give it a try?
Verdelho. That's my favorite
Verdelho?
one.
Yeah, yeah. You. Verdelho.
Verdeio.
Arinto dos Açores.
Arinto dos Açores.
Well done. Terrantês do Pico.
Serrantês do Pico.
Fantastic.
Really quick, I know some people are joining a little bit after we made a few announcements. So I just wanted to say thank you to all of you for being here. We've got another probably 15 minutes, Antonio. So I was thinking, so we
Are you
want
going to open some bottles?
I think I'm going to skip a few slides. I think maybe it would be cool to talk about the effect of phylloxera had and show that amazing graph and talk about.
If you agree, we would do kind of like what happened. So we work these three wines, and then we do we work the grapes, or we focus on Arinto, Verdelho, and Arinto. Or maybe we do this first. For the people that weren't persons that weren't in the winery, I've always been like, Antonio, we only have 15 minutes more. Stop. So, but I'm going to try to keep to planning. At least it's not like Instagram that at 1 hour, 0, bye-bye.
So I'll advance some slides then and start with the three grapes, the monovarietal wines.
Yeah.
Okay.
Cool. I don't know what's after your dance.
Let's see. We've got an amazing graph about
styles of wine.
And
maybe this we can't go over. This is just go back one. We'll do white wines, and then we finish with Isabella, if you agree.
Okay.
Yep.
So I'll start with Antonio has a very impressive deck. We will share this with all of you after, like I said. Which one are you holding up? Okay, the Branco.
Well, you can put it, if you want, you can put it on a slide of the wines. Then we go back.
Does this work for you?
Cool. Yeah, thank you. Perfect. So the range is the range is all these wines, but some of them are really tiny, super tiny quantities. Let's go through this. Branco Volcanic basically means white, volcanic white. What will differ from the others? Number one, it's a blend. So I don't know how many of you have had this. And what do we have here? I think here is just really a slap of the image we've shown you. And when you go and see the video, it's so intense, this idea that you have this constant spray of the ocean on top of the vineyards. So you always have this waves pounding. You're not in the Mediterranean and grabbing some sun in Santorini. You're in the middle of the ocean where storms come in, and so it's just like rock banging against rocks. And I think it's this. It's like you're sitting and getting some spray, salt spray on your face. I try to describe a descriptor. If you want to Google it, everyone's on a computer. Search, what's the smell of the ocean? And it's so interesting because a lot of people have said, I think your wines are a little bit reductive. And I tend to give them, I know what you mean, but for me, it smells like broken shells and all this. So I was looking to it, and the smell of the ocean is a compound called dimethyl sulfurate that is, and actually in big quantities is a little bit like rotten egg, so to speak. Think of low tide, but when it's just enough, when it's the smell of the ocean, when it's just, and I think this is a lot of people talk about iodine, brine, but I'm not sure if it's accurate enough to what I truly smell on these wines. They are this smell of the ocean, and this like if I'm still with juice, the valves smell like that. And so I work with a lot of, I'm booked. Is it for here? No.
I would say for all the somms out there, we definitely welcome any creative descriptors, because we know there's some things you can and cannot say tableside. Dimethyl sulfite is now not so appealing.
No, I love it. And I apologize for not being, I really want to give as much true, if it's to say the same that you already say, but I think it's really interesting to dig on this theme. What is the smell of the ocean? Mm-hmm. And I think as soon as you crack it, and we really get into this, what this type of aroma is. We've done this. So this is a blend of Arinto and Verdalho. I'll move into Verdalho, the original. Do you see it?
Yes.
Yeah. So, Erin, you're going to give me your descriptors on this?
Well, I remember from the graph, we know that this is the point where acid and fruit kind of meet in the middle. We've got a little bit more going on. Maybe it's a little friendlier on the palate right off the cork than the Arinto.
Well, now it's true. I would say the friendlier of all of them is Branco Volcanico. But from the varietals, you're 100% the Branco Volcanic. And why? Because we're using more of second pressings. And so second pressings are generally higher in pH, so they have a more mouth coating effect, so to speak. And but for me, they're also more. Yeah, 2016 is amazing. Someone's commenting. Yeah, it's also the amazing thing about these wines is, like I was giving an example of Riesling, but we can speak Alvarinho, is how they age. You know, this is. We're tasting babies. So I'm doing.
Antonio, what vintages are you tasting? What
18.
18.
18, yeah. Yeah. So this feels a little bit like what's it called when people have sex on television? Sex on computers. It's like a pleasure, a little bit of a pleasure without. There's no. I apologize for you're not having this wine while we're doing it, but normally we need to share. Just as a perspective, if you have a good background from maybe Chenin and Loire, I feel that there's a lot of things that connect them on the vintage thing. And, you know, as Azores, if the vintages are very dry, the wines are much more, let's say, tight. It's the opposite of what you think, you know. So the more concentrated vintages, in terms of color, are actually the vintages where we had more rot, so where we had more rain. And because vineyards are so close to the ocean, it's so close to the soil, it kind of dries out, so there's a little bit of a pasito inside of the wines are thick. I loved your face, Erin. But 16 is when you're like, ugh!
I know, it's like amazing.
But
are you getting detritus at all?
Yeah. But it's when you get the fruit, it's kind of like purple-like. It's so I was very extreme on taking all that out. And now I think part of the identity is some of that harm that happened with between rain and sun. So why is this relevant? Is because 16, I think, is one of those beautiful vintages, is somewhere in between. It's not a very wet vintage, but it's not a very dry vintage, and there's a lot of texture on it. 17 is somewhere in between, and 18 is just tight, like 15 and 13. They are wines for, I think in 20 years we'll open this and say, this is still a bit tight. But it's the vintages that I like drinking.
That was 19 that looking.
So, but like you were saying, Verdalho is a little bit smoother. It's more perfumed than the others, so it's a little bit more selective in the nose. So it can go on, the nose can go almost to tropical, but it normally stays in the border between grapefruit and almost showing a little bit of some more seductive aromas. If we go to Arinto dos Açores, how's my time?
We've got about 5 more minutes to talk about the wines as individual kind of wines, and then we've got so many questions that people ask, and I think we'll be able to answer a lot of them with the remaining time.
And so we're now moving to Arinto dos Açores. So Arinto is probably a word you know from the mainland, and because we like to make it very, very simple in Portugal, we have now, it's the new publications, 350 different grape varietals, and we like to call some of them the same name, so smart. And so actually the full name of the grape is Arinto dos Açores, so it's not just Arinto. And it does share, you know, grapes, the name of grapes come from either because the plant is similar or because it tastes similar. This is how people talked. And this is what we do today. If we're saying, you know, it's kind of like a Pinot Grigio, you know. And so, and this is the way people talk, you know. So I have a wine that tastes like this. So you're saying I have, so if you really go to the old books, they don't say Malvasia, they say Malvasias, plural. They say Terranteses. It's like groups of grapes that resemble to each other. Mm-hmm. And so this is how we got into this big mess of different grape names. So what are we expecting from Arinto? I said Verdelho is a little bit tight. Arinto is it's just so precise. You know, it's really tense. It's like a beautiful guitar. It's really, and what's helping this wines is if you grab all these factors like this, but then you have all this salt in the palate that kind of lingers. These are wines that have a lot of concentration. We need to, I didn't speak about yields, but we need to think that a very, let's grab 2018, that was the highest production year we've had. And it means that our average was 10 hectoliters per hectare. So this is 1/5 of Burgundy. So this is so fruit is super concentrated. The berries are super tiny, super concentrated. And so you have this punch. It's very rare that you have both together, alcohol and acid together. So Verdelho, the same, but very dense, but it's much smoother, more perfumed. Arinto, I'd say it's going to be probably the one that's going to last longer. Do you want me to do Surly? Or you want me to give a little heads up on what Terrantes is? What's?
I will go on to, Antonio, I'll go on to the red that everybody loves.
Yep.
And then please explain phylloxera and the effect on the island, and also why the island's wines were relevant before.
Lovely, Volcanico.
Yeah,
well, with this, I cannot tell you how much I'm drinking a day, so this wouldn't be. So I had this interview, I think Rui heard a little bit. He said, I know when we talk wine, it needs to be moderation. Oh, this is no time for moderation, my friend.
It's also important for
whatever you have to drink, you drink it.
If you were in the winery right now with Antonio, there would be a lot of singing going on. So we hope that you've got the freedom to be belting out.
Everyone's left already. Everyone's left.
That's how we do it.
And but so now I think this is the volcanic rosé. It really needs to, if you haven't had it, maybe you had it, but it's I'm not a rosé guy, to be honest, and I do several rosés, and all of them are pretty, I'd say, atypical, because I'm not a big fan of rosé. Just as it's all this idea of being just the latest vintage. It takes me. I like rosé, but it needs to be 3-4 years old. So I do in Alentejo one that is a mixed vintages. So it's a Solera with 7 different vintages. with my sister, we do the Touriga Nacional in rosé. So it's really just this idea of expressing the grape, and that's and I really love this one because it's no one rarely we talk about rosé and terroir in the same phrase. Normally when we're talking about rosé, we're talking about just, you know, nice, fresh, crunchy, pleasant. And I love this because it's when I'm doing my blends here, it's just, there is so much soul and salt.
Can you talk about the proportion of red grapes growing right now in the Azores compared to the whites?
It's small, super small. It's we have maybe always divide by 10 when I'm saying numbers of hectares. Okay, so I've told you the productivity, so you need to put the mindset when you say, well, I have 100 hectares, like, oh, equivalent to 14. And from the 100 hectares, 10 are producing. Okay, so that means 3 are producing. Yep, so this is, we need to put it on the Azores scale. And so I would say that there's probably 20 hectares of reds, something like that.
Okay.
So it's small. But we are planting, you know, this grape that you see here, Saborinho. This is going to be really a home run. Some of you have tasted it. It's a red from another world. But so we have Saborinho, that no one knows what it is. It's Tinta Negra, Agronómica, Castelão. What do you have more here? Aragonês. So Rui is laughing, thinking, will he finish still? Will he be able to finish?
We booked you for another call right after this. Didn't anybody tell you?
Sorry?
We booked you for another call. You got to teach a class at UC Davis right after this. So just, you know, take it easy.
No, I finished. I've done the call before. Okay, so can you move back a little bit on the slides?
Yeah.
So think of this. The Pico is it's on its prime, and I have to say that with this unexpected crisis, that it's a health crisis and it's a potential economic crisis, a huge, for sure, economic crisis. I think of Pico in 1850s. Think of this place. It was a gold mine. It was most of the historians, what they write are that the only wine that surpassed the sales of Azores wines in the Americas was sometimes Tenerife. This is James Boyle, and think of this. This is the only reason why you would plant so many hectares of vineyards in the middle of nowhere. The style of wine we're producing are the sacs, the dries, like that I've shown you, and then the pasados. So that comes from, you think pasito, it's the same thing. So the grape is a little bit more concentrated, and you're having this almost fortified style wine. And it's fighting. It's on George Washington wine. All the founding fathers have this wine on their cellars, and so it's profoundly Azores is profoundly linked to the other side of the Atlantic. The tax rates were different. Even the Canarian island wines, most of the producers there. This was a recent. This is recent information because it's the first time I've heard it. It was a Canarian researcher showing us that the producers there in the Canarian Islands were 80% Portuguese. And so meaning that the traffic of wine, you think if you're going to the Americas, you do, I don't know if you know the winds, but you need to go Lisbon, Madeira, Canarian Islands, Cape Verde, and then you start flowing to the other side. And then you go up the coast, and you come back to the Azores. So this is kind of and you're changing between islands. You're changing wines. So this was really going. If you go one slide back, I apologize. So look at this, and this is just Pico. Okay, so each one of if this graph was Azores, it would be 10 million, but this is just Pico Island. So Pico Island, we're in before powdery mildew arrives in 1853, and look at that. From 1853 to 1857, you go to zero. You know, you go from 3.5 million liters to zero. And now everyone has this perception, you know, Madeira exists, but look at the scale. This is Pico, like I'm saying, Pico and Faial, they represent 1/3 of the total islands, then São Miguel and Santa Maria, the other third, and then São Jorge and Terceiro and Graciola, the other third. So it was massive. For every one ship that arrived of Madeira wine, there were 2 ships of Azores wine. So people were making money, they were happy. And what happened? Powdery mildew arrives in 1852-53, and then phylloxera arrives in 1873. And it's most of the immigrants that you have in the Americas, in Canada, in Newfoundland, in California, that are from Portugal, they're all from the Azores, and most of all of them come from this period, from the Central Group. And so what happens, and also the whale watching is much, the whale hunting.
They're watching them to kill them.
Whale hunting that comes from the Americas comes just after this, and you see the boats, they're full of wine, there's no more wine, they start to fill it with sperm whale oil. So this is so this wines disappear, and what comes after? Can you go to the next? So to give you a bit of a broader spectrum, so these are diseases that happen everywhere else, and you're saying, well, why did it impact the Azores so much different too? So the impact of powdery mildew in France was 1/3 of the production was lost. Why is it so dramatic on the Azores? Well, it rains every day. So it's a fungus perfect place. You know, it's just so perfect for this disease that the impact was fatal. There's a lot of writings on how people try to fight it, replant it, treat it till they could eat, and they gave up. And even the ones that gave up, they would go to work in the Americas, come back and buy a plot of vineyard. This is how people were linked to this idea. So what came to save were the hybrids. This was not a Azores solution. This was a Europe solution. So the hybrids, either it is Isabella, Noah, Otello, Herbemont. These were the grapes that were planted all over Europe in all the countries we know, Italy, Spain, France. And as little by little people found solutions, they started with rules, with the AOCs, with all this. Think of all the AOCs of France, they're after 1930s. So this is all after. So people start reorganizing and forbidding this type of grape, that type of grape, and all the grapes start coming back. But the Azores, it was dead. No one else was taking care of it besides being for local consumption. So this stayed. So today, this is one of the most important cultural wines that you have. This is the wine that people drink. It's the wine of scent, the wine of smell. It's the wine that you, in every Christian festivity, that people will offer. This is the wine that goes in every recipe of Azores wine, Azores food. So when so this was what came to save. This vineyard that you see here is where this wine that we produce was called Isabella a Proibida, and no more. I'll explain why. At the vineyards that you can see here is the vineyards where it comes from. They're some of the oldest vineyards you have on the island. They're 150 plus. They're on the between 150s. They're 150 years old. And why are they the oldest? Because they're the ones finding a solution of grafting, and they're a masterpiece. If you go there, it's impossible to think that this should be ripped off the ground. So I did this wine, and and I still, this is what I have here, and it's, I think it's a 22nd century wine. It's not from this. Okay, a lot of people ask, what is Isabella? And people, it's Lambrusca. Uh, Actually, the first citation of Isabella is 1580s or 15. It's really, really early in Philadelphia. People were trying to plant vineyards, and everything was dying. So they did a cross between vinifera and Lambrusca. So actually, it's for sure the first American hybrid, or one of the first American hybrids that worked. And so what is for who didn't taste it? It's just like a slap of in the nose. It's just like boom! It's so exuberant. It's so aromatic. It's so wild. But and it's so fresh and textured. So why do I say it's a 22nd century wine? Because normally you either have fruit or acid, and I think this is really a punch of both. And really interesting. I've been just as a curiosity. The first vintage is 2014, and if you taste it, the aromatic scent disappears, and you're really puzzled what it is. And it's very, very. It's a really high class wine. It's so, I think in this version is so wild and so interesting, and with time it becomes so solid because you lose the what people call foxy, but and mean the Lambrusca side, this strawberry fragolino. So once I was tasting this wine in London, and an Italian guy screams, "Fragolino, Fragolino!" Yeah, taste that. Rui. You have there the 2014. Okay, so why is it written like this? Can you show it, Rui? So the first vintage was written like this, and then I got a nice letter from the EVV, it's the local regulation for wine, and it said you have 5 days to take this wine out of the market. I spoke with the lawyers. They say it's 40, up to 2 years of prison. Like, ooh, okay. So I wrote them back, and I wrote really ironic, of course. So I wrote them back, and I apologized for the confusion. Isabella was an homage to Isabella of Portugal, responsible for bringing for colonizing the islands, and of course it couldn't be that grape, because the reason why the grape was forbidden was because it had put people crazy and blind, and so it had to have methanol, and this wine doesn't. It would have to have anthocyanin diglucoside that this wine doesn't have, because we analyzed it. So for sure that this wasn't that grape that people were talking about. And so we said we'll take it out of the market in 5 days, and of course it was sold out already. We had to call some restaurants just saying, please don't put it on your list, just take it out of the. And we launched this one. So this one, what's funny about it, you have Rui there, you have Eugenio. So it has the this is what the not Inquisition, I apologize, censorship did during dictatorship times. It would correct the texts. So journalists would send it, you would just write off and put a stamp saying authorized with cuts. So I put a stamp of ancient dictatorship saying authorized with cuts. So beautiful wine, acidity.
Can we talk about, thank you, can we talk about the future and the new winery and open it up to some questions? I just want to make sure we're right at the hour mark. This is fascinating.
Yeah.
And certainly, please, we'll stay on the line for people who want to, but I want to make sure if you've got a question that we have time to answer it for everybody. I'm going to go to the slide with the winery.
Cool.
Okay.
Well, regarding the winery, not much to say, but to say that we are trying to do a winery that is, that can fit what we want to do. And so we did a winery that well, can host you guys, that we can drink some wines, and mostly that we can do great wine there. So I've eliminated vertical tanks, so fermentation is in horizontal tanks, like a big barrel, so to speak, and that's it. You know, I think that's the role. The word adega in Pico means a place to do your wine, drink your wine, and share it, you know, with people. You know, so this is kind of what we wanted to do. And it's an ambitious project, and hopefully we'll finish it.
It's like the Sagrada Familia. It's always going to be, you keep adding and beautiful anyway.
And so you can see in the back, it's just an amazing place with the vineyards in front, ocean, and the Pico Mountain in the back, ocean in the front. Is just a really special place. And I'll open for questions. Let's do it.
While we wait for questions, I really encourage everybody to, after the call is done and we're done with the call, really watch the movie that we'll be sending, the little video that we'll be sending. It's only 4 minutes. It's incredible.
Yeah, that's so cool.
Yeah. So everyone, on that note, we'll wait for a couple more questions to come through and answer them. We know that on this call we've got wine lovers, consumers, we've got distributors, we've got other people in the trade, somms, everybody. We're going to send the list of wines that we have in the US to everybody, along with this video, and we'll put a copy of this slide deck with all this fantastic technical data and great photos that Antonio prepared, his thesis on the Azores. So we'll send that to all of you so you can refer back to it in your own personal education when you're drinking these wines. If you do have a question about specific availability, if you want to send us a note with your city and state where you're at, you can send that to marketing@oleobrigado.com. We will get it, and we'll make sure everyone gets the right info. We've got market managers who can talk to you about all your questions. And like I said, yeah, we're going to send these follow-ups, but I mean, thank you, Antonio. This is incredible. So fun.
So first question is, can my mother virtually cook? I think everyone can virtually do everything now. We can virtually drink, virtually teach. That was the word I was working, virtual sex. That's what I was looking for. So virtually cooking, yes, I think people are doing that. That's being done. I'm not sure if my mother has done it. So super sure. Thank you for the opportunity, Mike.
Is this the southern coast of Pico? Eugenio was asking about the location of the winery on the island.
No, this is in the southern coast. We have one vineyard, but most of the vineyards are actually west to north. Okay. And that comes to because it's really the furthest. If you in the presentation, you're in that map, you see it's the furthest point from the Pico. So it's actually where you get more heat and less rain. So it's also the land that is more hostile. So I said that the rock is 300,000 years old, but like where this vineyard is, this is an eruption from the 17th century. So the last eruption is late 17th century. So it's really just rock, so to speak. So the best vineyards is where the soil is really still on this transition to starting to be usable. So it's very unfertile, and you can get fruits riper. So
I'll go back to the map. We've got a couple people asking where this is. I'll go back and show that map real quick for everybody.
Antonio, there's a question. What is the percentage of the Pico population, which is more or less 13,000, that works in the wine industry?
Wineries on the vineyards. Well, there's on this, just on the projects of recovery, there's around 300 people. And so that means individual people that got into it. I would say that on the population, I'm not sure if there's anyone that doesn't touch vineyards. Either they touch their parents' vineyards, their grandfather's vineyards, their friends' vineyards. What's really, really unique, and that's why it's World Heritage, that is really on everyone's blood. So if you ask what I've just explained, what's the difference between Arinto and Verdelho, everyone will tell you that Arinto is more acid, and it's not something. It's like it's on their childhood. It's part of their. So there was another question here about what was the influence, I think, on what was the impact on others. Yeah, and so I would say that the island was holding on, so to speak, meaning vineyards existed, the co-op was doing wine, and they were kind of feeding the local market, trying to do wines that looked like the mainland. This was kind of what was happening, and I think it was the having new blood in and saying, you know, this is beautiful. You don't need to make it look like something else. You just need to bottle it as pure as possible, and you'll see that there are people that understand this type of wines, and that gave a lot of energy to a lot of producers to do something. So the impact was that when my first wine was in 2010. In 2010, there was probably 200 hectares of vineyard in the Azores, of vinifera. Then we did our first recovery project in 2014, and there was 250 at the time, and from 2014 to now, 650 hectares were recovered. So in terms of also price of fruit, today price of fruit equals to champagne. So in the island, so it's 7 times the highest of mainland Portugal, something like that. 5 times the highest of mainland Portugal, and 10 times the normal rate of Portugal, just to give you. And I love it. You know, people are saying, how could you say that? You know, if when we talk about the yields, everything needs to be handmade. There's not one tractor. It's easy to understand that if the farmer is not making money, there's no future on this island. So if you need to generate margin to distribute profit, or else it's not a fun game. Okay.
I'm always curious, Antonio, about the other products that the Azores are famous for. Now that everybody's a foodie and cooking at home, if there's a dish that you love with the wines that people could attempt to recreate.
Are you suggesting something, or you're I know you're asking me to suggest. Okay. Well, there's so much, you know. Let's start. Every island has, 9 different islands. Every island has its special dishes. So that's one of the amazing things about Azores and Portugal in particular. In special is that, region to region, it's a small country, but it's with so much diversity. And I would say that, to repeat, I think Azores, I think barnacles, I think, what do you say, Chapa Chinois? What's the, Lapas? Lapas is, how do you say Lapas? No? Barnacle? No.
Clams.
No, that's not clams. But a lot of amazing fish. Then typical dishes, what would be equivalent to, in Spain, to uma caldeirada in Spain is a parrillada, not a parrillada, but it's octopus in the oven, octopus,
sushi,
stew.
Japanese.
What's that?
Japanese sushi, no.
Sushi, yeah, of course. Yeah. I don't know. I apologize. I thought you were saying Azorean typical dishes.
She was, but we could have that.
Okay, that's.
I was
thinking... sushi in Azores. Now we do have some nice sushi places, but Lapas limpets. Thank you. Obrigado, Pedro. Lapas is in Madeira. Yeah. Now I would say that it's very, very it's surrounded by ocean, so it's very normal to have a lot of fish dishes. And then there's a lot of good meat. So this is kind of what it goes around. Hard to give you with the foodies to give a recipe that could be repeated at home.
Cheese, salty cheeses, very strong, delicious, great
Yeah.
dairy products from
So,
the Azores.
same influence, Flemish. So St. George Island is more specialized in cheese, and same origin. So a personage called William van der Hagen that went in there in the 1400s, and he really created a cheese industry. And it's really like it's like a spicy Parmigiano. It's like a somewhere between a Parmigiano and agora estava a falhar o espanhol, o manchego. So someone between, but more animal, so to speak, like. So it's a really nice cheese. Limpets, barnacles, fish. Oh, you need to come. That's what I can say.
Any other questions?
Perfect. Barbecue, some fresh sea fish, olive oil, and all of us around the table just having a laugh. This is what we need.
Well, Antonio, thank you so much. This has been fantastic. We hope
Thank
you have
you,
a great
everyone.
night.
Thank you for organizing it.
And thank you all for being here. Cheers to you. If you're drinking something delicious, drink it in good health. Thanks. We're going to be doing more of these, and we're so happy to have had you on our first one.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Cheers. Bye.
Cheers. Bye-bye.
Thanks, Antonio. Good to see you.
Hi, Bruno.
Obrigado, Antonio. Thank you so much.
Patrick.
Good to
How are
see
you?
you. I see that you're in form, half drunk, you know, in perfect shape.
Always have junk.
So good to see you.
So good, so good. Thank you so much.
Thank you.